Hi, welcome to Hidden Gems. My name is Arden Thomas. I'm the Syncom Smalltalk Product Manager. If you have any questions, comments, suggestions, please send them to athomas@syncom.com. Hidden Gems is where we show you capabilities of the product that we want you to know about and you may not be aware of. So today's topic is namespaces. Namespaces can be simple or daunting, and we're going to give you some simple, pragmatic techniques to use in using namespaces. So the first question you might ask is, why namespaces? Well, they can be used for a couple things: organization, to organize your work, but the bigger reason is for collision avoidance. So say, for example, you have different vendors, different projects, different applications, and maybe some of those applications want to use the same class name, but a different definition. So rather than doing something more difficult, like resolving them to different names or giving them all different names, you can use the same name and put them in their own namespace. So we're going to show you some things. First, where to find them, how to create a namespace. So let's get started. Let's go to the class browser. If you go right here and click on Base Visualworks, the first three things you see here, for example, these icons are for namespaces. So here's the Smalltalk namespace, and you'll see it's comprised of some shared variables, which is basically the basics of what a namespace is. What we're going to do is we're going to say we have either a vendor or a project called Bravo, and we're going to create a new package called Bravo. So there it is. Now, if I want to create a namespace, let's say the namespace Bravo, in here, I can do that two ways. I can go up here and say class new namespace, or another way to do the same thing, right click in this space, new namespace, and we'll create the Bravo namespace. Notice that we're creating this as basically a subspace of the Smalltalk namespace, and also that we import private core. This says that we want the things in core, but not the additional things loaded, which we can do individually, and we'll show you an example of that later. So there it is. Notice the icon, and we've created the Bravo names. Now let's create a couple things. Let me right-click New Class. Now first, notice it tells me let's create this in Bravo, which is usually what I want to do. But first I want to contrast that with creating it in the Smalltalk namespace. I'm going to create a customer with name, address, and phone. And we have that Smalltalk customer. Now let's create an application. Let's do that by opening this up. We'll say it's a customer app. We're going to install that. Let's use it. We're just going to put everything in the Bravo package. The name is going to be customer app, superclass application model. If you want to see some alternatives, look at the Hidden Gems for Domain Master, which gives you some more capabilities. Let's go ahead and create that. So now I have the customer app, both of these in Smalltalk. So we're good. Now let's contrast that. Actually, let me come back here. I'm going to say new category, initialize release, and I'm going to create an initialize method that says customer new. I'll save that. Let's look at customer. I've got customer with name, address, phone, and all is well. Now, let's say we want something that looks different for our Bravo project. So new class. I'm going to put that new class in the Bravo namespace. It's going to be The same thing, customer, and it's going to have ID and name. So this is different than the other customer. And now I've got it. Notice the difference. Smalltalk customer, and this tells me it's the Smalltalk Bravo namespace customer. And they have different definitions. Let's do the same thing with the application. Let's create an application. Same label, customer app. And we'll install that. Create a new class, package Bravo, namespace Bravo, customer app. Notice it lets us do this because it's in a different namespace. So now what do we have? We have a customer app in the Bravo namespace. Let's copy this and put it here. We'll add the protocol, the method. But if I say, oh, look at that, we get a glimpse, an insight into it's a Bravo customer, even though it says customer, because it's in the namespace and sees it first. So if we inspect that, it is in fact the Bravo customer with a different definition, which is exactly what we want. And typically this is the way we want to use it. We'll create a namespace and we'll create our domain models and our applications in that namespace, and they'll use the appropriate things. It'll go to Bravo first to find those things. So that is the basic, straightforward way that you want to use that. But let's show you a couple of other things. Let's say in our Smalltalk customer app, we wanted to use the Bravo customer. How can I do that? Well, I can do that two ways. Let me show you the two techniques. First, I can say bravo.customer, and in fact, I'll get the bravo.customer right here in my Smalltalk land. And another way is to come out here to the definition, my Smalltalk customer app, and import bravo.asterisk. This says, let me import the Bravo namespace. So now, when I go here, it's a Bravo customer that it sees first because we've imported that namespace. So those are two ways I can get the specific behavior. Likewise, let's say I want to have an HTTP client, new. The two ways, net HTTP client is in the net namespace, so it says net.http client. But likewise, I can go to the definition and say import net.asterisk. I'll save that. I'll come back here to initialize, and I can take away that dot notation because it knows that class because we've imported it. So those are the basics, and those are the pragmatic ways of using namespace. Now let me show you a couple of other little tips. Workspaces are really powerful and capable. There's scratch pads. We can do all kinds of neat things, write scripts, test things out. In here you can go to Edit Namespaces, and it gets the basics by default. It gets core, kernel, and Smalltalk, but you can change that by this interface right here to import specific namespaces that you want to test out, for example. One other thing is, before you deploy, you typically want to clean up a namespace called undeclared. And if you simply inspect undeclared, you'll note it's a namespace. And if there are things that are referenced but not used in here, you'll see them right here, and you can find the references and clean them up before you deploy. So to recap, namespaces are for organization, but more for collision avoidance. We showed you where to find them, how to create them, pragmatic use by creating your domain models and your applications in that namespace, and also how to get a class from another namespace with the dot notation or by using imports. So that's namespaces in a nutshell. If you have any questions, comments, suggestions, please send them to athomas@syncom.com. Until next time, have a great time with namespaces in Syncom Smalltalk. Thank you.